Morning, ladies as well as gentlemen. Papa Boris here for some more Hearthstone gameplay. In the last video, we featured the Warlock board control deck designed by a gentleman or lady named Curi, and now we're going to go ahead and play some more games with it. So we really, let me turn the volume down here. We really smashed a rogue to bits with the deck in the last video. The deck went exactly as intended. We got board control, and then the rogue was just dealing with our creatures one at a time, and one at a time wasn't good enough. Now, of course, there's no deck in this game that will always win, but this one does manage to achieve its objective a good deal of the time with a combination of cheap creatures plus buffs. Such a simple idea, and yet so effective. SDP the Paladin. Alright, so we are first here. Actually, this is like almost the exact same hand we had last time. We're going to go ahead and keep this. So it's actually not inconceivable that we'll play the Blood Imp on turn 1, and then actually just buff him up on turn 2 and start attacking. That is quite possible. Of course, you know, usually what you'll do with him is you'll keep him in stealth and then buff your other minions' health. But here, it's tempting just to start swinging for the fences. Ah, we got another creature. Okay, we're going to go ahead and change plans just a little bit. We'll play the Voidwalker. And this guy, I am actually going to attack with him. I wouldn't do this against every class, but against paladins who can't just shoot this thing and who don't have too much by way of like cheap removal, this is actually a pretty decent move.
Put this apple on your head.
The Knife Juggler is extremely scary because this flings knives, and so it actually could kill off the Blood Imp. So we definitely want that Knife Juggler dead. Now there's a couple of different ways that we could do this. One is we could play a Shattered Sun Cleric onto the Voidwalker, make him into a 2/5, and kill the Knife Juggler that way. Then the Worgen will be able to finish it off. Another way is that we could just Demon Fire the Knife Juggler. Then we don't put the Shattered Sun Cleric on the board. And a third way is we can actually Demon Fire the Voidwalker, because he's a demon, so we could give it +2/+2, make it a 3/6, and kill the Knife Juggler that way. Then he'll be left with 3 health as opposed to 4, but he'll be hitting a lot harder. We'll go ahead and do this. This seems perhaps a little bit risky, but it's fine for now. So basically, this guy would have been a 1/4 if I just shot the Demon Fire at the Knife Juggler directly, but instead he's a 3/3, so that makes him both more and less vulnerable to some things and another things. So we'll see what the Paladin has at 3 mana here. He could still, he could coin in, because he's the second player, he could play like a Hammer of Wrath or a True Silver Champion, and that would allow him to kill the Voidwalker off.
Let me think.
Well, he does have the coin, and Hammer of Wrath. Well, now I regret making this guy at 3 health. I could have left him at 4 health instead. So that's sad. Now my opponent's going to make an interesting decision here. He's actually going to attack me, rather than attacking my little Blood Imp here. That's fine by me. What we'll do then is we'll play the Dark Iron Dwarf, buff the Blood Imp, and I am actually going to go ahead and do the trade. Because paladins have a lot of creature buffing potential, so I don't want to leave my opponent with creatures on the board. Board control is always important, but it's even more important against the paladin. Alright, this guy has a very strong card here. He makes it so that a minion's attack is 1, so this Dark Iron Dwarf has been neutered. Even with the help of the Shattered Sun Cleric, he still can't quite reach up and kill the Peacekeeper. So we're going to be using the Soulfire that we just drew. So I could play the Azure Drake. What I'd like to do is actually draw an extra card. So I'm going to draw a card first. You should always draw cards first, see what you get. Okay, Shattered Sun Cleric. Then we're going to play a Shattered Sun Cleric. We're going to use Soulfire here to kill that guy off. Now we're going to lose a random card, and that was our other Shattered Sun Cleric. Well, that's both a good and a bad thing. The bad thing, of course, is the Shattered Sun Cleric would have been nice to play. The good thing, though, is I get to keep my strong cards here. These are both quite mighty, especially the Argent Commander. There's a decent chance I'll be able to drop down on this turn and kill off some of my opponent's things. All right, my opponent's going to make a Recruit. That's the Paladin's hero ability, is get a 1/1, and that's all he's doing. Uh-oh, he's in trouble. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll hold on to the Argent Commander then. Let's actually play the Azure Drake now, because we drew the Flame Imp, so we'll get to put that on the board. We're going to use my Humiliated Dwarf as a minion clearer here, and play a Flame Imp. So again, notice this deck working as intended. Our opponent has a goodly number of cards, 7 cards to our 6, but the opponent also is in a little bit of trouble because all his cards are in his hand, whereas our cards are actually on the board. Now, he played a very good creature here, the Sunwalker, Taunt plus Divine Shield. So it's going to be a little bit tricky for me to kill this because I don't actually have any spells. But what I could do is I could actually throw away the Flame Imp onto the Sunwalker, or I could even throw away the Dark Iron Dwarf to pop this Divine Shield. And then I could play the Argent Commander, deal 4 more damage to this thing, and finish off with another creature. Another way is actually to... no, it actually ends up being the same way no matter what. Ah, darn. Now, I could forego playing the Argent Commander and instead play Novice Engineer and see if I can draw a removal spell. It's a bit riskier that way. But I'm going to go for it. I'm going to actually play the Novice Engineer and draw a card. See if I can get something. Ah, Soulfire! Well, it's a good thing I drew that card. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw another card with Life Tap. Power Overwhelming. That actually could also work. I don't really need it here, though. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run in this Neutered Dwarf. We're going to play the Flame Imp. We're going to Soulfire this. Notice it's dealing 5 damage because of the spell damage from the Azure Drake. I threw away Power Overwhelming, which is perfect. Because I would like to still have the Argent Commander. And we're going to pass the turn. Alright, so we dealt with the opponent's threat by drawing some more cards, which is good. The reason I felt pretty comfortable drawing cards is there is, you know, still a fair bit of direct damage in this deck in the form of, like, the Mortal Coil and those Soulfires. So I feel like the odds were pretty decent I'd be able to pick some of that up. My opponent plays Consecration to deal 2 damage to my team, which is actually quite a lot of damage. And then he's just playing a humble Shattered Sun Cleric. So now I can actually deal quite a bit of damage. I might even be able to win. Let's see. This is 4, 8, 11 damage. Not quite enough. And Mortal Coil cannot target the opponent directly. Well, let's draw a card, see if we can get an answer here. Demon Fire. Alright, we'll go ahead and just play the Demon Fire. Again, with the spell damage from the Azure Drake, it deals 1 extra damage, so I can finish off that one creature. And then we'll pass the turn. Unfortunately, I don't want to kill my own creatures, even though that would mean drawing a card. So we'll see if my opponent has some more removal. He could potentially claw back into this game. This is a very good card. It's a legendary, actually. So this guy has Divine Shield and Taunt, just like the previous creature that was played. And when he dies, he puts a weapon into the opponent's hand. Now, I don't really care so much about the weapon. That's not really that big of a deal. What I think we're going to do here is, let's see. There's really no great way to do this. Alright, let's draw a card, see if we can get an answer. Another one of those guys. Okay, so we'll play that. We're going to run in our Shattered Sun Cleric to pop the Divine Shield. We're going to smack in like that. Let's pop the Divine Shield, deal 4 damage. And now the Mortal Coil deals 2 damage. We got a lot of mileage out of the spell damage here, so we're going to kill this thing. And we're going to draw a card. Now my opponent gets this weapon. But weapons are great if you're at high health. They're not so good if you're at low health, so he can't really kill my creatures with it. Now what he can do is just smack me in the face. Just take me to 9 health. It's possible that he could burn me out on this turn. We'll see. This game is going down to the wire. Oh my god, another one of those. Well, my opponent's got a lot of stuff. This doesn't make any difference at all, but we need to get through this and still try to deal some damage. So let's see what we can get here. Defender of Argus, that is perfect! That's just perfect. Okay, so we're going to play him.
My shield for Argus.
And we're going to play our Argent Commander, number 2. We'll run him in to pop the Divine Shield. We'll use one of our creatures for 5 damage buffed by the Defender to kill it off, and then this creature gets the kill. Well, that was a close game against the Paladin. One thing that this deck is not running is any silence. So silence is an effect. There's a couple of neutral creatures that have a silence when they come into play. What you do is you target a creature and all of that creature's card text is eliminated. So you could get rid of Taunt and Divine Shield and all that stuff, and that would have certainly been handy there. I think the reason is that Silence sometimes doesn't have any targets to hit, so it's a bit of a risk playing it. You might end up with all these Silence cards in your hand that don't have anything good to do. And it looks like, and then in the strategy write-up for the deck, which I'll put a link in the description, the creator of the deck says that the deck performed so well, they didn't feel like it was worth it to put in, you know, risky things that may backfire. Alright, here we go, Jin the Paladin. We're going to go ahead and send back our Stormwind Champion. He's a bit expensive, but we'll keep our Voidwalker, and we'll keep the Soulfire here. Thing you just kind of have to accept when you play Warlock is, you know, you just got to do this, and yeah, sometimes you'll lose a good card, but, you know, 4 damage for free is a pretty unbeatable price. Alright, we're drawing all of our well, not all of our, but we're drawing a lot of our 1-mana demons here, which is totally fine. So we'll get to play them out in the early turns, potentially. And then we also get to, but then after that, play Soulfire and start drawing cards, so it'll be fine. Alright, now this is a Fairy Dragon. It can't be targeted by spells, so I cannot shoot it with Mortal Coil. If I could, I would totally run my Voidwalker into it and finish it off with the Mortal Coil. Instead, what we'll do is play a Voidwalker, number 2, and a Blood Imp, which is actually quite handy here. Because by putting these cards up to 4 health, it's making it so the Fairy Dragon can't kill it on its own. Now, my opponent used the coin last turn to play this Fairy Dragon, so he's limited to just 2 mana here. Looks like he's got some kind of a plan. I know, we're just going to play another Fairy Dragon. Well, fair enough. Let's see if we can get some help. No, we can't. Well, I can't use Soulfire on these because they're untargetable. So what we'll do is we'll draw a card and see if we get any help there. Power Overwhelming. I don't think I want to use that just yet. Let's go ahead and play the Argent Squire.
Protects me.
And here, I think I'll keep the Blood Imp around. We're going to use the Voidwalker to finish off this damaged Fairy Dragon, and I will actually swing with the Blood Imp for the same reason that I did in the last game. It's important to, get this damage in here, and Paladins are not the greatest at taking out a 1 toughness creature directly.
Not on my
So my opponent has a very good start here. Lots of early stuff himself. This creature puts a divine creature on a friendly, or divine shield on a friendly minion. So again, he's really getting mileage out of these Fairy Dragons. Luckily, we got a Demon Fire, so let's see if that can help us kill something. So I can make this guy into a 3/3, but that will actually still die to the Fairy Dragon, which I'm not super thrilled by. I still can't target this thing. I could use Soulfire, Power Overwhelming and kill something that way, but that doesn't seem great either. Well, I think what I'll do then is... Ah, man. I think I'll pop the Divine Shield here, use Mortal Coil to finish this thing off, and draw a card, because cards are nice. The Blood Mage. That's... that would have been nice to have at the start of the turn. Damn it, because then I could have just used Mortal Coil to kill that directly. Ah, such is life. We'll go ahead, I think, and... I don't really want to Demon Fire and throw both these away. I can't Soulfire it. I could run them both in. Alright, here's what I'll do. I'll actually play Demon Fire. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and trade these off. So it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but my opponent had a really good start with those double Fairy Dragons, evading my Soulfire, and then the Divine Shield.
Put this apple on your head.
So here's a Knife Juggler. He's going to probably make a Recruit now, and hopefully does not fling into my Blood Imp. Note that Stealth would not have protected the Blood Imp. Alright, good. The knife goes at my face. That's totally fine. Okay, so now here, let's go ahead and play some of these cards. We're going to play the Blood Mage. We'll play the Flame Imp. And I can either play Power Overwhelming and let one of my creatures, kill one of his, but then I'll lose the creature. Or I can just let it get thrown away to Soulfire. Let's actually let it get thrown away to the Soulfire. We'll kill off this Knife Juggler. Throw away the Power Overwhelming, and then we'll draw a card at the end of the turn. Flame Imp is nice. Okay, so we'll go ahead and clear up the minion, because you don't want to let Paladins keep creatures on the board, and we'll pass the turn. We're a bit vulnerable here if my opponent has a Consecration. Luckily, though, the Flame Imp would survive, and then this guy would draw me a card upon death. My opponent instead will spend his whole turn Hammer of Wrathing my little demon, which I'm totally fine with. We have plenty of mana here. Let's draw a card before we do anything else. Ah, Shattered Sun Cleric. Perfect. Okay, so what I want to do here is actually buff up my Blood Imp to make it a little bit more durable. And we're going to play an Argent Squire. Now, the reason I'm playing this rather than the Flame Imp is that the Flame Imp... Actually, the Flame Imp would have gotten buffed by the Blood Imp. Yeah, I should have probably played the Flame Imp just because it hits harder. So my opponent now is going to kill off one of my creatures with this weapon. It's actually going to be the Shattered Sun Cleric. Fair enough.
Reporting for duty.
And he's going to make another little dude. Okay, Argent Commander is pretty great here. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to use the Divine Shield just to kill this Dinkosaurus Rex, but I'm going to pick this off. We'll play this. And again, even though the Paladin put up a lot of resistance in the early game, we actually end up with but tons of creatures. Basically, 6 cards we have on the board, all of my opponent's cards are in his hand. Now, it's not to say that he can't win like that. That's a pretty good card. It heals him up for a lot, but it's definitely tricky for him to do so. He's picking off my hardest hitting creatures. I can't really blame him for that. Now, let's see. We can deal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, putting him down to 8. I could buff something up. Is this guy a demon? No, he's not a demon. But I could buff up my Blood Imp some more, make him a 5/5. So let's see. This would be 4, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage. Well, let's go ahead and see what we life tap into. Shadow Flame. Not exactly the card we need at this point. Do I want to kill this guy? That's really the question. Do I need this guy to die right now, or can I just leave him alone? We're just gonna go ahead and leave him alone. That might be a mistake in the end. We'll see. But oh no, it's only 4/4, not a 5/5. I beg your pardon. The spell damage from the Blood Mage doesn't affect that. Okay, so you know, now I kind of wish I had that Power Overwhelming. That would help me push through the extra damage that I need in order to win this game. But we still should be fine. My opponent's going to need to drop one of those big taunters. Like that guy. Oh, God, Jesus. So frustrating to deal with. Okay, well, luckily the Dark Iron Dwarf was pretty much the perfect draw. We're going to go ahead and use... I could use the Blood Mage to pop the Divine Shield and then draw a card. Or I could just pop the Divine Shield and do an extra damage. My opponent's so low on life here, I think I'd actually rather do as much damage as I can. Dark Iron Dwarf is really good here. We'll do this. We're gonna go ahead and kill this dude. Swing for a couple of points of damage. And let's draw a card, see if we can get some finishing. Nope, nothing to finish my opponent off with, but we'll go ahead and play another Blood Imp. Buff up the health of our creatures here a bit. Okay, so my opponent can actually deal a whopping 10 damage to me. So I took a little bit of a risk leaving this guy alive. I'm gambling that Paladins aren't the greatest at dealing 5 damage, and they're not. However, he got to get 8 health and draw 3 cards. And he's even going to kill off my Dwarf. Interesting choice. I guess he's got enough life to do it, so he might as well. Alright, Sylvanas is interesting. Oh, man. So I can actually play her and then play Shadow Flame and destroy her. And then steal a creature, but unfortunately I killed off my opponent's creature last turn. So we'll play her. Well, let's take a look at what we draw first. Maybe I'll draw the Win. Okay, so I'll play Novice Engineer. Maybe I'll draw the Wind. Power Overwhelming would do it. Soulfire, that will do it. Okay, perfect. 1, 2, 3. Again, these cards end up sitting in my hand. And then that spell damage will push through the extra point. Alright, so that was another Paladin and another close-fought victory. Again, the theme of this deck is that you play a lot of cheap creatures, but it's not so that you go balls to the walls, aggro on your opponent. You actually are not trying to do that. What you're trying to do is trade your creatures into your opponent's creatures, either having your creatures live in the process or having them die, but still getting value because it's your cheaper creatures dying for more expensive ones. And then at the end of the day, your opponent has all the cards he needs. He's got superior cards, but he just doesn't have anything on the board, and you kill him before he's able to overrun you. So that's actually twice in a row against 2 different Paladins. Those Paladins had different names. That we actually beat the Paladin legendary card, Tyrion Fordring, a 6/6 taunt Divine Shield who puts a 5/3 weapon in your hand when he dies. We didn't even silence him or anything. We just straight up bullied our way through him and got the wins. Alright, Die the Druid here. Here we don't have any of our 1-drops, which is a little bit unsettling. However, we do have a really good 2-drop and a really good 3-drop, and some removal in case we need it. So I'm actually going to keep this hand. Of course, there's a risk that we're not getting anything on the board on turn 1, but it's possible we'll top deck into 1, and we do. That wasn't, by the way, like horrifically unlikely. Out of the 27 cards in here, 8 were 1-mana creatures. So you know, it's not like it was that improbable. I mean, certainly much less than 50%, but still. Now, you know, I get to put a 1-drop and a 2-drop down. Druids have an interesting hero ability. It's Shapeshift. They gain +1 attack for the turn only and +1 armor. So they're kind of like a mix between a rogue and a warrior and a mage, sort of all in one. He's going to go ahead and armor up and attack. And he might as well. It seems like he had nothing better to do, so he doesn't lose any life because of the armor gain. And he's chipping away at my creature here. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm actually going to play Shattered Sun Cleric and beef up my guy a little bit more, flinging a knife in the process, and just swing. Don't underestimate, by the way, like a 3/2 on turn 2 dropping down and just hitting your opponents for several turns. That is a lot of damage. All right, here comes the coin. It's got something for 4 mana. and it is a swipe. So it deals 4 damage to one enemy and 1 damage to all the others. It's a good thing I buffed this guy because now he's still safe from the hero ability, and the shapeshift cannot target my knife juggler because my knife juggler is behind this taunter. So this guy getting into my hand on turn 1 was quite solid. We're going to go ahead and make this Dark Iron Dwarf. I'm going to buff up my taunter, make it a little bit more painful for my opponent to swing at him. And we're going to go ahead and swing a lot. So my opponent's already down to half health, and it's just turn 4. It just goes to show, you know, how good aggressive creatures can be. He's going to give himself a bite for 4 attack and 4 armor. So he's going to chew through all that armor, attacking into my buffed up Voidwalker. And that should be the turn. Okay. Well, Mortal Coil is not really playable here. I can't play this guy yet, so let's draw a card. You should always draw cards first before seeing what to do afterwards. Play Novice Engineer, fling a knife, and a Dark Iron Dwarf. That'll be good next turn. Right, I don't need to use this just yet, because this is only 7 plus 4 is 11 damage, and my opponent would still be alive. Let's just go ahead and swing normally and pass the turn. So again, 3rd time in a row, really 4th time if you count the first game, we have massive board control here on turn 5. And my opponent plays a 4-6 with taunt. That really shouldn't be a problem. Let's think. I can just use this in Mortal Coil. That seems good. I can also use the Dark Iron Dwarf. Yeah, there's just a lot of different ways to get rid of that thing. We'll go for the straightforward approach here. We're going to put Power Overwhelming on this. Play a Dark Iron Dwarf to buff it up some more. So this Novice Engineer is buffed like crazy. We'll kill off the taunter and swing for the last 7 damage that we need to win the game. So in the face of resistance, we win on turn 6. Alright, that is it. So we played 3 games with this deck. It's a deck I highly recommend. If you don't have... Let me just take a quick moment to talk a little bit about the deck list. I mentioned in the last video that it's a good deck to make if you're looking for a nice Warlock deck, but the issue is that it does have 3 legendaries. So what if you don't have those? Well, let me talk about that a little bit so you can get a little bit of a sense for things. So one of the legendaries in this deck is the Blood Mage Thalnos. If you don't have him, it's actually really easy to make a substitution. What you're going to want to do instead is play with a Kobold Geomancer. This is a basic card. It's not even common. You just get it for free at the start of the game. Notice it doesn't have any gems, so you don't even need to find this in a pack or craft it. You just have it for free. So it's spell damage plus 1. So this is a spell damage plus 1. It's a 2/2 for 2. He is a spell damage. Whoops, sorry. He is a spell damage plus 1 and death rattle draw a card, but his stats are worth. So it's honestly kind of a toss-up. So replacing him with the Kobold Geomancer is not the end of the world by any means. The other legendary here is the Sylvanas. If you don't have her, what I would recommend actually is still putting a 5-drop in the game. So either put in a second Azure Drake. That's just always a great card to play for 5 mana. You could put in a Frostwolf Warlord, who gains +1/+1 for each other friendly minion. In this deck, he could be really solid because we were so good at keeping board control. It's pretty likely that you'll have other minions on the board the turn you play him. Or you could do my personal favorite. You could actually play a Stranglethorn Tiger. This is a 5/5 for 5 with Stealth. So Sylvanas is a 5/5 for 5 with the Death Rattle. This is a 5/5 for 5 with Stealth. So your opponent cannot target it the turn it comes into play. Your opponent can't attack it. This thing is very, very tricky to kill. And so it's really nice if you're trying to push through the extra damage. Plus, he's in Stealth mode, so then the following turn, you could play a Shattered Sun Cleric or a Dark Iron Dwarf, buff him up, or even a Defender of Argus, buff him up and swing for even more damage. Now, the last legendary in this deck is one that I swapped out for a Stormwind Champion. If you're curious what that is, we're going to need to go into crafting mode to see it. Hang on. Oh, right, I need to change the mana cost. Right. Lord Jaraxxus. This is a Warlock legendary card. 9 mana. And the battle cry is destroy your hero and replace them with Lord Jaraxxus. So it's actually kind of nifty. If you haven't seen this before, definitely do a Google search and see if you can find a video. It's probably the most awesome, like the most badass card in the entire game when you see what it does. So anyway, that's the card I swapped out for a Stormwind Champion. But if you don't have him, that's fine. You can see the deck still wins just fine without him. We didn't even cast Sylvanas in like any of our games, and if we did, she was just a 5/5 for 5. So and then the Blood Mage was good. The Blood Mage with the spell damage was good, but then again, the Kobold Geomancer would have been just fine as well. I don't think this guy even died in any of our games. So the legendaries are totally fine. Really, the tricky part is making sure you have the rares. But again, as I talked about in the last video, the Knife Juggler, the Defender, the Azure Drake, the Argent Commander, these are rares that you want to have anyway because they are used in so many decks. that you won't regret crafting them for this one, and then all the other cards are commons or basics. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this deck spotlight. Hope you give the deck a whirl. It's a very, very good one, as you've seen, and I'll be back soon with some more arena and newbie friendly gameplay. Till then.